Okay, welcome divas and dudes to Powerhouse Bakery. I am so excited. We are starting a new series. So for the next several weeks, we are going to be talking about some things that we can't see so easily. We're going to talk about the gut biome. And what I really want to do is bridge the information that is really relevant in science right now with what's to eat. I always like to do that with our classes, is really give you applied information. And so I want this to be interactive. I want to make sure that you take notes and ask questions as we go so we can chat at the end. I also will always bring some samples for us to try. We know that the nutrition industry always is very keen on figuring out what the nutrition experts are talking about so they can be front and center, ready with a product for us to hopefully drink or eat or take and it be a cure-all. Now, you know I'm quite a skeptic because over the 30 years that I've been really looking at nutrition, I'm a skeptic because we know that we haven't yet to find a cure-all or a pill, a magic pill that we can take. But what's exciting is that things that push the industry push research, and so the value of the almighty dollar is sometimes good that it pushes research. And so if there's a potential benefit, there's a good chance that there's going to be some people out there trying to discover new ideas. And so that's where I want us to really learn and ask good questions so we can not only have eyes wide open when we go into the store and look at products, but we can also be abreast of the newest trends and technology as far as food and medicines. And so with the gut biome, what we're going to do over the next few weeks is look at research and then look at products. And so what I have on the table today is a variety of different kombuchas. Anybody ever have a kombucha? Yes, some of you know, some of you, yes. Yeah, so this is an example of a pre and even a probiotic. So we're going to talk about pre and probiotics here, and we're going to talk about what happens in our gut. And so whenever we have something like a probiotic, P-R-O, a probiotic is going to be different than a prebiotic. And we're going to be talking about both of these. So if it's pro, that means it's already some bacteria. It's already some bacteria. If you've ever taken probiotics, you know that it's a little pill and it's filled with billions of healthy bacteria. And so the question will be, why are we taking bacteria into our gut? And so that's what I want us to study, is understand the why, and then of course better equipped to decide on the how. Kombucha is, even on the front end, it's a great beverage because if I met somebody that loved Coke or Pepsi or Sprite, they're a lover of sweet drinks, even sweet tea, and I was trying to help them with their goal of reducing sugars, this might be a good option. Why do you think? It's carbonated, it's kind of sweet, but it's much sweeter than a soda, and it even gives you a little pep. Who knows why, but the alcohol that the bugs create gives you this little pep. And some people say, oh, that I do not like that feeling. Others kind of like it. But the reality is, in a bottle, there's somewhere between 30 and maybe even 70 calories. So if for nothing else, if it's a good alternate to a sweet beverage, to me, that's a win. If we look at other products that are beverages like this, you'll see, and we're going to talk about these over the weeks, Kefir. Anybody ever try Kefir? Yes. So there's been some cool research on Kefir, and I'm going to describe it. It's basically a drinkable yogurt, we'll say. So it's using dairy that has been fermented, kind of like this. This is really water that is tea and juice. Some variation, some ratio of juice and tea, and the juices have been fermented so that they create some healthy bacteria that then help to nourish our gut. So I think it's so interesting when we start looking at beverages that are going to be a vehicle for bacteria. The kefir has been, again, something that's been around for a long, long time. Cultures in the Mediterranean as well as Asian cultures really use kefir as a way to help the gut. And even before all the research, people just knew that if you drank this stuff, you would feel better and it would just be part of your healthy diet. So I love the fact that now it's kind of come full circle and we've looked at why people are doing it rather than just the fact that it feels good. We're trying to understand, well, why? And so that's going to be kind of our investigative reporting for the next few weeks, is I want to look at new products based on some old principles and see what we're coming up with as far as science. We know that the Mediterranean diet is really built around heritage. When we studied that diet, and it's still really highly regarded as one of the best long-term diet approaches for us, we see that it's based on tradition. It's based on foods close to the earth. It's based on little processing. It's based on lots of fruits and vegetables. And there isn't really a people group in the Mediterranean that says, I eat vegan or I eat keto. Instead, they have a familial, traditional eating style. And I think that's so cool for us to look at that and understand, how do we learn from them? Because what happens in the Western culture is that we always want new and great and fancy, fast moving, research, goes straight to industry, make something and we don't even really know why, we're just going to take it. The supplement world is so fast at getting just a pin drop of an idea and blowing it into an institution and a big multi-billion-dollar sale. And that's what I'm always trying to help us be really careful about, because nothing is more alluring than selling health. Nothing is more alluring than, gosh, if I take this drink or this pill, it's going to make me feel better. It's going to help me lose weight. It's going to help build my immune system. And it's going to help me live longer and look younger and feel better. Right? Who doesn't want that? So we have to really be cautious because it's not always that simple. So that's what I'm hoping to really help us decipher as we go through this process. Let me just show you these different flavors and brands, and then we'll kind of delve into our nuts and bolts. So this one's called the Health Aid Kombucha, bubbly probiotic tea for happy gut. On the back it says, you've got a big bright world in there. Your gut is a community of 100 trillion microorganisms that boost and tour its way around your health and wellness. That's way more than we need to digest. It boosts mood, drives energy, strengthens immunity, for starters. But your gut needs fuel to do that job. And that's where the Health Aid Kombucha comes in, with living probiotics and detoxifying acids to restore body and mind from the inside out. You're sips away from a healthier gut and a happier you. Isn't that fun? Yeah, so potion in a bottle. So if we dissect this a little bit, there's a few things that I think are correct in that your gut needs fuel to do the job. So we're going to talk about what the gut's fuel is, and that truly is from our diet. Bella, would you do me a favor and get a little towel for me to wipe? It needs to be slightly damp. I forgot one. Thank you so much. So we're going to learn about how there's this little grain of truth in this copy, you know, these really smart marketing people, and how we learn to decipher that and really understand, is this good? Because do you know anybody that has a happy gut and feels great and from the inside out that has never had a kombucha? Of course you have, right? We don't need this to have all those qualities. So we have to be careful because they try to convince us that if you don't buy this, you're not going to have all those wonderful qualities. Here's another one. Now this happens to be my husband's favorite. This is his treat when we go to HEB. So the Buddha's Brew Kombucha Peach Mint. It's actually really good flavor. It has 45 calories in a bottle. Thank you so much. Oh, actually a cloth. Oh, okay. Yeah, one of the ones in the back. Thank you. In a cozy corner of Austin, known to locals as Oak Hill, Buddha's Brew resides. Here at the gateway to the Texas Hill Country, we brew with traditional fermentation methods as wild as the Greenbelt and Creek in our backyard, right? Kind of homey, colloquial, good old Austin brews this special stuff. We brew authentic kombucha, handcrafted from wild living culture strains and bottled raw as nature intended. One of our live cultures comes from the native grapevines growing alongside the brewery. Be wild. Austin's known for being wild, right? So again, it's trying to create a culture. Thank you, that's perfect, my dear. So as we go through the gut biome, our goal is to understand what products are out there and why do we need to have them? And then is it really based on some science? So as we look at the gut biome, the little picture that I'm drawing, we're gonna start to really dissect. We're gonna look at diet. And again, I mentioned a little bit about probiotics. Because the question we wanna answer today is, what is our gut biome and who's in charge? So that was the title I picked today. And if you were in one of our meetings in the past, I've talked on the gut biome. There's some really exciting research that sort of calls our gut the second brain. And so, you know, when we start looking at the interactions between the gut biome and the human genome, we really see that there's so much going on here. Now, in my last talk, and you can look them up on YouTube if you want to catch it. But when I talked about the gut biome in the past, we watched a really cool video that was about the second brain. And when we understand what's going on in the gut, we understand that when our diet feeds our biome some probiotics, we start really having some great interaction with our brain. And so I'm dotting this line because this is a topic that we covered, and I'm going to touch on each time we come together because it's so cool that we understand that the diet that we have influences the biome because of what's in the diet. And of course, probiotics are an example of things that have some bugs in it. But what about if we look at one more of these little sections and we look at the certain kinds of fibers. So soluble fiber and insoluble. So we can have our probiotics from a bottle, but we can also feed our biome with the foods that we eat. So what will be some examples of soluble fiber? Cooked veggies. And really even some raw, but we'll say for sure cooked veggies. So if you've never had spaghetti squash, butternut squash, zucchini, mushrooms, cooked asparagus, green beans, baby spinach, those are all great examples of cooked veggies that are soluble fiber that help make our diet rich in feeding our gut biome. You follow me? So as we're learning about this, we understand that when our gut is happy, our brain has great nutrients, and it all boils down to how we are really feeding our overall health and wellness. Okay, so what would be some other factors that affect our gut biome? Well, age. There were some really cool studies that looked at the Japanese people, and the researchers were trying to understand what was different about the biome or the guts of children versus adults. So this is important to us because our question will be, what impacts our gut besides diet? Do we have any role other than, gosh, if we don't eat enough vegetables, we're destined to have an unhappy gut? That answer, of course, is probably no. But does it affect our immune system? Does it affect our overall well-being? And of course, does it affect our diseases? And so when they looked at these children versus adults, they realized that children have a very set number of gut bacteria. And if you remember from that first video, we learned that children have their biome kind of jump-started when they're born. Anybody have any kids that were C-section? Yeah? Okay, me too. Both of my boys are C-section. Sadly, more and more women are having babies by C-section. That's not good because that first jolt of healthy gut biome comes from the bacteria from the birth canal as the babies are born. And so babies if they are born by natural childbirth, have a rich gut biome. Wide variety of bacteria is a really good thing. We know that when we have a wide variety, we know that we've got a lot of short-chain fatty acids that are produced. The short-chain fatty acids are the fuel that the biome gives our body. So remember that term, short-chain fatty acids. That's like the holy grail of why we want the gut biome to be so healthy, because the short-chain fatty acids help the brain, help the human genome, perpetuate health and wellness. Okay, so again, we know that probiotics are after the fact, right? We can give some of the healthy bacteria, quote unquote healthy. But what we love is that these little kids seem to have the best variety to start with. And as we age, the variety goes down. That's what we want to understand. What causes the variety of bacteria to go down from children to adults? Any ideas? Yes, both. Yes, both. So now we've got some negatives. We've got antibiotics and a poor diet can lower the short-chain fatty acids. So as a kid, I was so worried about getting acne. So my mom said, don't worry, we'll put you on tetracycline. So I took it forever because I was afraid of having pimples. And now I'm like, Mom, I wish you wouldn't have done that. Maybe I wouldn't have Graves' disease now, an autoimmune disease. Of course, that's a big stretch, but we're starting to see some correlation. Young children that have been given antibiotics, or even young teenagers or young adults that have been given a lot of antibiotics, seem to kill off the variety of the healthy biome. And now we've got less short-chain fatty acids that help our body. You following me? Now, Linda also brought up another great point, diet. So we know we've got to feed our biome. Now, after the fact, we can do, I guess, a kombucha or a kefir and hope that it's going to be the right kind of bugs to get along with whatever bugs are left, right? But we don't know. Does anybody know what kind of bugs they have in their gut? No. Now, there's some cool research, which I'm going to share with you throughout the weeks, that is looking at understanding the DNA of our gut biome. And just a little bit of a segue, when we think about, what was it, in the year 2000, we were able to identify the full human genetic DNA. Remember that? It was a really big deal. We have 100 times more DNA when we look at our gut biome. So like 10 times the amount of bacteria on our skin and our gut and our oral mucosa. So we have so much more to learn. The human genome is a good start, but the next thing we want to be able to do is learn about the gut genome, gut DNA. The reason why this is so important is it helps us understand human differences. Just like when we were learning about the human genome, we were able to understand the etiology and the causes of different diseases. Same idea here. If we can learn more about the gut biome by understanding its DNA, now we get to use all the smart brains in science to work backwards and say, if we have this problem, this is the DNA, how do we work up and figure out how to now create better drinks, better medicines, and even better supplementation of pre and probiotics. You follow me? So the big picture again is that with age we lose this wonderful variety, and we know that that variety is so key because it helps us ward off infection and different diseases. So let me flip this around for just a second, because I want to delve into this a little bit more. When we think of all of the diseases that are kind of a part of our culture, unlike what we see in other more, we'll call them third world, but we really start to wonder, why is it that our culture has so many of these lifestyle diseases? For example, diabetes. We have type 1 and type 2 diabetes. We have cardiovascular disease. We've got obesity, which some could say kind of do this, right? Kind of an initial reason why people get heart disease and diabetes. But I'm sure you know plenty of people that have diabetes that aren't obese, right? Then we have liver and kidney diseases. And of course we have cancer and neurologic. In fact, one of the exciting horizons that's coming is when we learn more about the gut biome and those short chain fatty acids that communicate with the brain, we're able to figure out more detail around treating Parkinson's disease. We're so close. And Alzheimer's. So a lot of you know I'm dealing with Alzheimer's with a family member for me. And we're like probably 5 years away from finding a true bona fide treatment to these neurologic diseases. And guess what we're learning from? The biome. And so it's this hidden secret that I'm so riveted to learn more about. Not to mention that when we learn more about the biome, we're gonna have better treatments for how you feel today. So irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, Crohn's, and autoimmune, which I told you I have Graves' disease, so that's an autoimmune class. So many of these diseases we're able to learn about when we study those short chain fatty acids, and we go a little deeper and understand the DNA of this huge, vast array of bacteria that live in our gut. So gone are the days that we're gonna freely give out antibiotics, I hope. You know, our medical community is figuring that out. We need to slow down, and we're not against antibiotics, but we have to be a lot more careful. And more moms now are trying really hard to have natural childbirth. In the third world countries, or developing countries, I mean, the upper echelon of women are choosing C-section because it's easier. I don't want to go through all that pain. Just, you know, numb me up, get the baby out. And now they're realizing, no, that's not the best way to go. In fact, there's some really cool researchers that are helping the families where the babies have to be taken by C-section. They actually feed the baby some of the bacteria from the birth canal, so they can get some of that important bacteria into their system that will then help the familial sharing of that bacteria. Because when we were studying, or not we, but when the researchers were studying that group of Japanese families, and they were learning about the children and the adults, what they really found out was that there's this rich biome that is part of their family. Now there's two different categories. There's a family of biome that we share. There's also a geographical. And so it's interesting that depending on where you live, you could have a similar biome based on what you're interacting with in your environment. And then you also have a familial. So again, lots of great information that we're learning to help us really understand how to fight some of these diseases. Because if we understand that the brain and the gut now are going to have so much to do with each of these diseases. In fact, we're even saying, gosh, you know what? There's even this whole psych section. Psychological disorders seem to have so much impact on the gut biome. So it's like, well, what area does it not touch? And so to me, that's just truly exciting. And that's why it's so alluring to say, well, I better just start drinking a bunch of kefir or maybe some kombucha, just to be sure. You know, and so I don't want us to feel like we have to jump the gun. But if you're going to try to do some prophylactics, I would feel better trying yogurt and maybe kefir and some naturally fermented things that, you know, come from Austin that have some local bacteria. Remember, because environment, local and familial is where we get our good injection of bacteria. Okay, I could do that. What scares me is when we're taking pills and we don't know what's in it, And it could be the wrong combination of bacteria. I bet you know someone that has taken probiotics and it's really upset their stomach. Or you know some people that have taken probiotics and don't feel any different. And at the same time, you might know some people that take probiotics and feel so much better, right? And so what we're seeing is truly a Russian roulette of, well, let's see, which bugs do we think we need? Let's throw them all into this pill and close our eyes and wish. Just point to something and say, okay, I think that's the right gut bacteria. But what's cool is we are learning a ton about what options we have and where are we going to really find the holy grail of a healthy gut. So diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, all of these have a direct correlation to what we eat, right? So what I want to do now is just focus on those three, and then we're going to go down to the rest, the cancer, the IBS, and the Crohn's. What if we were to just talk about diabetes? What kind of diet do we recommend that these to avoid these diseases? What kind of diet do we recommend? Well, we know that we want more veggies and we want low fat. Come on, you know all this. We want lean meats. I mean, the industry talks about this all the time. In fact, I get people in all the time that want my help, and I go, Suzanne, I know what to do. I just can't do it. Or I'm too busy. Or I have so many things going on, I just can't do it. Right? And so they have this sense of guilt because the media has been so good at saying what you should do that somehow it's not working. So my response is usually, I bet you're doing a lot of things right. But I bet there's one or two things that are making it harder for you. And so one thing I often bring up is not so much what to eat. So what to eat, but how about what not to eat? Right? What not to eat? Because we always hear about the what to eats. So now think about the what nots to eat. What do you think would hurt your gut biome? Because Linda was right. What's going to decrease our healthy biome when we got it a good flora when we were babies? What do you think's impacting it and causing it to die? Well, we talked about having antibiotics, but there's also a slew of things that are going to make it worse. So we think of the developing countries where they don't have packaged foods. They don't have a Whataburger and a Chick-fil-A on every corner. So you know where I'm going with this. When we have fried foods, we know that that's hurting the essential fats. When we have refined, we know that that's hurting the carbohydrates in the different foods. And really meats, are one of those things. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to lately that say, Suzanne, if I just eat meat, I feel fine. And that's kind of opposite, right? Because I often will say, you need lots of fiber. If they have a very inflamed tummy and they take out all the foods, the oligosaccharides that cause those gases and feel bloated, they are going to feel better because they're taking out the foods that really cause trouble. And they say, well, yeah, I should just follow the keto diet. I can't believe how much better I feel. So there's a couple reasons for that. On the one hand, their gut is already inflamed. There's already a war going on in there. So by taking out all of those oligosaccharides, at least those poor little bacteria are resting. They're not getting pounded because they don't have all the tools they need to really digest and absorb those fibers. If you had a big steak dinner, you're going to feel really full, and it's going to take a while to not feel so full, right? It's going to be a little harder maybe to go to the restroom because you ate that big steak. And you were at a barbecue and you had barbecued chicken, a lot more than you normally do, and you don't feel so good. Or maybe you went to a barbecue and you had lots of watermelon and you had a lot of beef or a lot of chicken. The watermelon will now go to your large intestine, and if you don't have the right flora, you're going to start feeling that gassy production. You don't want that, okay? And the meat slowing it down. So now you got a double whammy of oops. So the bottom line is we do want to understand what not to eat. We understand that heavily fried food changes the fats in a way that makes them harder to digest. Refined flours changes the carbohydrates so that they don't have as much fiber anymore. Can you think of an example of a bread that's low in fiber? Yes, you're totally right, Rachel. She said white bread. White, good old, highly processed white bread just means that that wheat flour, once it's pulled out from the field, it's going to be bleached and pulverized and pressed into a flour. I pause because it's hardly a flour because it's so powdery. And right away it tastes sweet in our mouth. Why do you think that is? Because the oligos, what's that?
They add it?
Well, yeah, they might add a little bit, but usually it's because the sugars in that grain are so exposed. You think of when you have a walnut that you have to chew it, right, to get the walnut digested. If you get a walnut powder and you grind it up super fine, it's a completely different critter, but you don't have to chew it anymore. And so it tastes totally different in your mouth. If you get a wheat kernel and you chew on that, that's totally different than if you put some white bread in your mouth, right? It's already been processed so much. And so that's the problem. When we get highly refined flours, it changes the quality and it makes it much harder on your body because it's lacking the fibers. And then, of course, meats. Do meats give us any carbohydrates that impact the gut? No. Nope. When you guys build your best foods list, we know that we've got proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, right? And so proteins give our bodies amino acids, and the carbohydrates give our sugars, so the glucose molecules, right? And then the fats give us the essential fats. So that's what's really important here, is that when they're changed so much, it's harder on the digestive tract. So what not to eat are going to be the processed foods. What would be another category of things that probably aren't going to help our gut biome? Any ideas?
Additives.
Yes, exactly. Additives. There's so many things that we don't know about, right, that are somehow put into the food. Now, do you think that Nabisco Nabisco cares about your biome? Heck no. Exactly. They care about the money. So Nabisco is not in the business to help your biome. Nabisco's in the business for making sure that you love their cracker or their snack food. So they're going to make sure that it's high sweet, high fat, high salt, high crunch, and it's going to make you feel like you're getting a great value. So a lot of, goodie for your penny. That's all they care about. So they're not going to worry about the health of it. Now, there's even some stealthy health foods that are trying to pretend like they're healthy, and they're not necessarily. So on the one hand, it's better to look for a whole grain. And on the other hand, it might be better to take out the whole category of snack food, because snack food is dangerous, right? So you might pick I know, Rachel. Well, and of course, I don't want to say always, but if it's a snack food, the company says, all right, make that snack food so good that our sales are going to go up, right? So the health foods, what do you think they use as their strategy to make the sales go up? If they're using, refined whole grains and no sugar, because everybody's idea is, healthy, I'm going to have to give up flavor. No high salt, high fat, high crunch, high sweet. Dang. Okay, so instead, what do? They change the marketing. They put these great little stories on the package, and they say, if you buy this, you're going to feel better and look better. It might not taste as good as that Coca-Cola or that Pepsi, but it's going to be so much healthier for you. And so people go, okay, it doesn't taste that good, but I'll learn to like it, because the marketing has told them that. And so when I'm doing all this research and I'm watching these other cultures eating foods that are nothing at all like our Western diet, they're chewing on, a carrot or a sugar cane, a root, And that's what their snack food is. Totally different than ours. And so as we look over the years and see how this diet trend starts to really impact our gut, we start to see it. So yes, part of the Western conundrum is that we're obese or have diabetes because we're sedentary, or that we discover the disease faster because we have lots of resources financially. But the reality is it goes even simpler than that. And that is because we have so much access to snack foods and yummy foods and restaurants and free time and the financial wherewithal that we let our mouth control what we pick. And so when we start thinking about it, what if I were to let my gut control what we pick? So I just started working with a lady yesterday, and she's in her 70s and wants to get healthy. And I thought, well, that's awesome, better late than never. And she was a hairdresser for years and worked so hard in her life. And she said, now it's finally my turn to take care of myself. So she wants somebody else to cook for her. So I was so excited to get to help her. And yet she had no idea what would be her healthy diet, had no idea where to start. And so I can't wait to guide her through, how do we decide what to eat and what not to eat, avoiding the ones that we know of. But what if we even were to take it a little bit farther and start looking at, when our gut is healthy, what impact does that have on every other function in our body? So the liver, our immune system. So often, especially this room, we want to know, why did it happen to me? And we are far from that answer, right? But I fully believe that we, as the matriarchs of the family and the patriarchs, we can share our story in a very provocative way and say, I'm learning that if we start as little kids eating differently and maintaining that healthy gut biome when they're little, now we set the trajectory totally different, because now your gut biome does not lose the variety and the wide range of beautiful medicine that's provided in our gut. And so it's kind of cool to think about when we understand that we definitely have some control. So who's in control? Well, we are, because we do have this all-powerful brain. We don't necessarily understand how the gut biome can be a brain, but when you think of it physiologically, we have a direct connection from our gut. The mesenteric is it's a connective tissue that directly connects our gut to our brain. When we have certain foods, serotonin goes up. Anybody ever heard of that hormone serotonin? We like that. Yes, we like that hormone, right? That's the feel-good hormone. And so the levels of the hormone serotonin are affected by what we eat. And of course, we wouldn't expect that, right? We'd think, well, serotonin, I don't know, it's just something that is in my body and I don't have any control over it. How cool that, yes, it does. And so something that disrupts that serotonin pathway is when people use a lot of non-nutritive sweeteners. And I can't wait until we get all of the non-nutritive sweeteners out of our routine. Had another lady in yesterday, young gal, just 2-year-old baby. She's very into fitness. And I did a 24-hour recall. That means, okay, tell me what you've been eating. She has headaches. She's got great fatigue. She's working so hard and she can't figure out why she can't lose weight. And she should know everything, right? She's a fitness expert, and she feels very bad that she's a coach and telling people how to eat and what to eat and how to exercise. And she says, Suzanne, I can't do it myself. And as I went through her diet analysis, she's got diet sweetener in everything. She doesn't drink coffee or tea, but she drinks these little power drinks several times a day. And then she has crackers and protein bars, and then her meal is just going to be veggies and chicken because that's what she's supposed to eat. And her body is starving. Not only is her gut biome getting the wrong stuff, But she's not focused on this as much as she's focused on how to avoid those calories. And so when we create your best foods list, we always go back to how is that best foods list going to really serve me? And so I'm just going to put a little reminder down here about what that best foods list looks like. And, you know, for sure, we always think of it personal, that the foods on that list should be personal. That means that this little lady, even though she doesn't eat a lot of veggies, she's more focused on the protein, I'm going to help her gradually find protein in a wider variety of foods, not just meats. Because when we think of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, it's super important that we get these foods as minimally processed as we can. And remember on the backboard where I talked about what not to eat, we're going to find ways to improve on these foods. So even if she's got chicken and rice and avocado, which are all really good, right? Could we take them from good to great? We sure could, because right now she's getting mainly her chicken from, guess where? Chick-fil-A. Yep. And she loves pizza. And so could we give her a better pizza? Of course. She doesn't have to take pizza off her list. But all the while, as I'm building this with her, I'm helping her find soluble and insoluble fiber. So we're finding things to add in and trying to find things to take out. So the non-nutritive sweetener, I said, you know what? The good news is you're going to have some great opportunity to try new things. I kind of scared her because she thought, I'm going to have to give up my favorite drinks. And so sometimes I'll even say, you know what? Doesn't mean you can never have it. Sometimes the easiest approach is to find new foods that you love that slowly push out the foods that you thought you couldn't live without. One of the hardest things for people to do is change their morning ritual coffee, because that's like their favorite thing. You wake up and you look forward to that drink, whether it be a tea or a coffee, or in her case, the funky little, the top drink. And so one approach is, well, don't feel like you can never have it, but instead, let's try one or two things that you could also like, So that eases the pain a little bit, because we know for sure that when we start creating the best foods and we start understanding the value of this category, it goes against the grain of the media right now, right? What's the media telling us? The media is saying that carbs are bad. So here's this gal that feels like she should know everything and trying to do all the right things, and she's completely missing the boat on how to help not only her gut biome, but also to help with her weight loss, her energy level, and getting rid of her migraines. Okay? So I think the best idea here is to know that this is always going to change. It evolves. This evolves, your best foods list. And I started this sort of, idea of the best foods list probably in 2019 when I was doing all the videos, and it just was like this light bulb moment to me that nobody needs to have the same diet. And as we learn about the China study and we learn about the Mediterranean diet, there's so many wonderful foods and cooking styles and techniques that I think we as a Western culture have forgotten about, that real food and real people have evolved eating styles that always go back to the basics. And so while I think it's really fun to try new products, I always want you to go back to, how about some water with some lemon in it? Or if you grew up with tea, because I know we're in the South, tea. Even if you had sweet tea, the challenge will be, could you reduce the amount of sugar, right? Remember portion size. Or could you maybe change the type of sweetener? And so instead of having white sugar, maybe you changed it to coconut sugar. And that would be an improvement. And then once you change the type of sugar, then you could reduce the amount. So there's lots of ways to bounce from portions, the quality of the food, the company that the food keeps. All of those have a big role to play in maximizing our best foods list. Let it evolve and make sure that you're enjoying it. because for this little gal, she was eating, lots of chicken and broccoli, and she was not enjoying it. She really needed just some good old complex carbs. And so I can't wait to see how she does in a couple of weeks. My hunch is that she's going to see weight loss. She's going to get rid of her headaches because we've taken out the non-nutritive sweeteners, and we've given her body what it's craving, which is carbohydrates. Our body functions beautifully on carbohydrates. It doesn't mean that we need to be vegan, but it also doesn't mean that we need to only eat protein. I can't tell you how many people I've met that are trying to follow the keto diet and feel miserable. Does it mean that some people do fine on it? Of course. That's the beauty of, human variation. But what I hope is that through these next couple of times together, I want us to explore the gut biome and understand really who's in charge. Is it this brain or this brain? And really what makes up our biome. And that is this wonderful world of a complexity of bacteria that it's a symbiotic relationship. Meaning that if we feed it, it will give us those short chain fatty acids that help to build our immune system, help to control hunger and satiety, help us to sleep better. I mean, it's like the Holy Grail. But it's not so simple that we can just take a product and think that we've fixed our situation. The very best is to share our story with young people. So it's not a good idea to say, well, he's a kid, let him eat whatever he wants. Well, if that's our mentality, then in a few years, they're going to be dealing with obesity, diabetes, possibly setting their body up for cancer, possibly setting their bodies up for liver dysfunction or a fatty liver, right? And so that's where I feel like we have the best opportunity to share. Because still, we don't know why we get cancer. And we know lots of people that are, don't fit the mold, yet they still get the disease. That's because we can't see what's going on in there. Just like I mentioned when we first started the class, there's so much we're just learning. It's kind of like the secret world. And one of the French researchers that I follow, he said it's like the rainforest. We can understand it from afar, but until you really get in there and you see the amazing diversity, you'll never want to lose another rainforest again. And it's the same thing with our bodies. The good news is, as we're learning more and more about the DNA of the bacteria in our gut, we're learning ways to help revitalize it. But there's still a good chance that some of those lost important bacteria will probably never regain. But remember, we've got environment and we've got family pools of important sharing of that DNA. So there's still hope that we're going to be able to really gain some medical benefits and turn the tides of the epidemic of problems that come from an unhealthy gut biome. Okay, I wanted to save just enough time to do some fun samples. So we're going to open up these bottles, and I want you to get to do a taste test. And so we're going to have a little fun with it, knowing that there's nothing wrong with a little experimentation. Some of them are probably better than others, so I'll be excited to see what you think. So thanks for joining me today.